All right, good afternoon. I'm going to cover states of consciousness in this review. So, we're looking at altered states of consciousness, basically. Consciousness is your awareness of what's going on around you. So, in this particular unit, we look at altered states such as sleep and dreams, as well as psychoactive drugs and hypnosis. All right, first off, a few levels of consciousness. So, as I just said, your consciousness or your conscious level, these are things that you're aware of. It's your awareness of yourself and your environment. So, hopefully, you're all alert and conscious right now. So, that would be what you're focused on this lesson. Non conscious, these are things that are occurring inside of the body that we're not focused on or thinking about. They happen automatically. So this would be like your heartbeat or your breathing. So unless there's a problem, you would not be aware of those. Your pre-conscious level, think of pre as before. So these are things that you're not focused on right now, but you could be, and you could bring them to your conscious awareness. So in class, I gave you the example of a favorite toy during your childhood. So it's not something that you were thinking about, but it's a memory that you have, and you could bring it to your conscious awareness if asked. All right, so we're going to start off looking at sleep. Sleep is referred to as a biological or a physiological rhythm. So these are physiological fluctuations. There are three different types. An annual, so this is a biological change that occurs on an annual basis. With animals, I can think of a good example would be like hibernation. In the winter months, they hibernate. For people, we tend to not be as cheerful in many cases in the winter months. Seasonal affective disorder is more common because the days are shorter and we're not getting much sunlight. That would be an annual fluctuation. So a monthly fluctuation, this would be, a good example would be like a menstrual cycle for females. But sleep is referred to as a daily fluctuation, your period and 24 hours of being awake and asleep. Body temperature would also be an example here. Your body temperature fluctuates on a daily basis. It's at its highest point when the sun is going down. So if you've ever been sick and you develop a fever, you usually notice it towards the evening, and it's at its lowest point early in the morning when the sun is coming up. So a lot of times if you do have a fever, it usually breaks in the morning and you wake up sweaty. So it varies throughout the day by about a degree. But for this lesson, we're really focused on sleep, our period of being awake and asleep in a 24-hour cycle. This 24-hour biological function has a specific name. It's called circadian rhythm. So this is our periods of being awake and asleep. So we know that the hormone melatonin is the hormone that's responsible for making us sleepy. So at night, when the sun goes down, melatonin is released and we start to feel tired. And I told you in class, in an adolescent brain, your body, your melatonin is not released until later in the evening, normally 11. So like 10:30, 11, you're really not sleepy probably until after 11. Whereas in an adult, that melatonin is released a lot earlier. So that's why your parents are sitting around at 9:30 trying to stay awake and you're wide awake. In the morning, when the sun comes up, okay, that triggers the it triggers the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which shuts off the melatonin and causes you to start to wake up. All right, so we know that's occurring physically. But there's more to this period of being asleep and awake than just light. There was a study done in the 70s where they took people down in this cave, and it was set up where they had housing. They had bedrooms, they had living room, kitchen, and they had, like, I guess, been 8-track players, record players, and they were able to watch VHS tapes. But they had no knowledge of what time it was. They couldn't see the outside world. Okay, they didn't have any windows. They couldn't have any clocks. They couldn't watch live TV. The study was intended to find out if, without knowing what time it is and without that light from outside coming in and the sun going down, will we still sleep at night and still be awake during the daylight hours? What was interesting is, although they have no clue what time it is, people were watching them through, video cameras. These individuals still slept in the evening hours, nighttime hours, and were awake during the day. So there is something internal in us. It's not just the sun going down, the sun coming up. It's internal. It's a physiological fluctuation. And these individuals, they didn't have alarm clocks or anything to wake them up. And on average, they slept about 9 hours and felt very rested. Very few of us probably get that, except for on the weekends. Your body likes consistency when it comes to your circadian rhythm. So if you go to sleep at roughly the same time every night and get up at about the same time every day, you'll feel much better, even if you're not getting sufficient sleep. When our circadian rhythm's out of whack, we feel bad. So that's why you go through the whole week during school and you go to bed roughly the same time, get up about the same time. And then on the weekend, you sleep really late and you feel exhausted. And you're like, why do I feel so exhausted? I got extra sleep. And it's because your circadian rhythm is now off. And people who work shift work experience this. They're always going through different shifts, so their body never has a chance to adjust. Traveling across time zones, people get jet lag. It's because your circadian rhythm is off. So our bodies really do like that consistency when it comes to being asleep and awake. All right, so we're going to look at the different sleep cycles that we go through at night when we're sleeping, and you'll need to know the specific stage associated with the brainwave pattern that we show in each stage and a few characteristics during that stage. So we have different brainwave patterns that show up on an EEG machine when we're sleeping, and our mind, our brainwaves travel through 5 different patterns throughout the night. So we have 5 different brainwave patterns, 5 different stages that we go through in 90-minute cycles, and then they keep repeating. And again, you can see these on an electroencephalogram machine. And we learned that before, that the EEG machine monitors your brainwave patterns. All right, so 4 of the stages are considered non-REM, which we'll get to in a moment. And the last stage, stage 5, we call REM. All right, so let's start off with stage 1. All right, stage 1. This is a non-REM stage. You're not showing REM. You're not showing REM activity. All right, so during this stage, you're just starting to drift off to sleep. Okay, this is when your muscles are just starting to relax. Your eyes are getting heavy. Your breathing is decreasing. Your heart rate is decreasing. This stage can last between 5 or 15 minutes, depending on how tired you are. If you're really tired, you can go through this in about 5 minutes. If not, if you're pretty well rested, it may take about 15 minutes. So sometimes it's called hypnagogic or hallucinogenic sleep. As you're starting to drift off, you're still somewhat alert. So let's say you're in class. Sure, it doesn't happen in my class, but let's say you're in class and you're just starting to drift off. You're getting sleepy and your eyes are getting heavy, but you can still hear that teacher's voice. It's almost like you're hallucinating. If somebody nudged you and said, "Hey, wake up," you'd be like, "I'm not asleep." And because you're really not, it's just that transition into sleep. All right, so we're showing theta waves, which are very similar to the alpha waves. Let me enlarge this. So alpha waves here, these are waves that we show when we're awake. And you can see small rapid waves like this indicate that we're alert. Okay, this is when we're awake. Here's stage one, your theta waves. They look very, very similar because your mind is still pretty active. Right? You only go through this once because you're never that alert again throughout the night. Obviously, unless you get up and like go get a sandwich or you wake up for a while, then you might go back through stage one. But if you continue to sleep all night, you only go through it once, the first time you go to sleep. Okay, so you've been asleep about 5 to 15 minutes, and now you're going to transition into stage two. All right, so stage two, the muscles continue to relax, your heart rate and breathing decreases. During this stage, this is like a transition from an awake brain to a sleepy brain coming next. So it's going from being alert, your mind being completely at rest. So in this stage, you see a transition of theta waves mixed in with some of the delta waves in deeper sleep coming next. Those rapid bursts are called sleep spindles, and that's one of the biggest characteristics of this stage. So you can see the theta waves mixed in with the delta waves. The delta waves are the deep sleep stages coming next. So you're transitioning from being very alert to being very, very asleep. Right, so you always want to associate the sleep spindles with stage two. This stage lasts about 15 minutes. So you've been asleep about a half an hour now, and you're going to go into the deep sleep stages. Okay, this is when your mind is at rest. Sometimes this is called delta sleep because you're going to see delta waves. They're very large and spaced out, indicating that your mind is at rest. Right, the further you get between stage 3 to stage 4, the larger those delta waves get, because the more you transition from stage 3 to 4, the more at rest your mind is. So during this stage, if somebody is to wake you up, or if your alarm goes off and you're in stage specifically 4, you're going to be very groggy and disoriented because your mind at this point is completely at rest. So it's going to take you a while to become alert. So here again, your mind is at rest, but what's interesting, this is when your body can be active. This is when people will sleepwalk, move around in their sleep, talk in their sleep. If you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning, it looks like you wrestled an alligator in the middle of the night. Your covers are everywhere. You are moving during this stage. So your mind is inactive, but your body's moving. So this is when night terrors occur too, and we'll talk about those in a moment. So this is also called restorative sleep because the body is repairing itself from the daily wear and tear. And in addition to that, this is when your growth hormone is being released. All right, so stage 3 and 4 lasts about 30 minutes. So you've been asleep about an hour now, and now you're going to go into stage 5, which is also referred to as REM. So you can put stage 5 here, but it's also REM. REM stands for rapid eye movement. So during this stage, your mind becomes active again. Everything speeds back up. After you leave stage 4, really fast, real rapid, your your brain will go through stage 4 to 3 to 2, and then into stage 5 or REM. And it happens very fast. So your brain goes from being completely at rest to now very active again. And during this stage, this is when we dream. Okay. So it's called rapid eye movement because your eyes under your eyelids move back and forth like you're watching a story. And that's happening while we're dreaming. So people often say that, oh, I don't dream. We do. Everybody dreams. Everybody has REM sleep. Animals have REM sleep. And it must be very, very important because if animals or people are deprived of REM sleep for any reason on nights following that deprivation, animals as well as people will go into REM faster and spend more time in REM to make up for it. And this is a process known as REM rebound. All right, so these rapid waves that we're showing, see if I can pull this up here, right down here at the bottom. Okay, you can see they're a lot faster, indicating brain activity, small and fast, very different from the delta waves, which showed a sleepy brain. So here your brain speeds back up. It's very active, very similar to the alpha and theta waves, not as active, but very similar. Okay, and what's interesting here is your mind is really active and you're dreaming, but your body is paralyzed. So it's the opposite of stage 3 and 4. Stage 3 and 4, your mind is at rest, but this is when your body's active. Stage 5, your mind is very active, but your body's at rest, and that's good. It's good that we don't move when we're dreaming because you wouldn't want to get up and act out your dreams. So back to stage 4, when people sleepwalk. It's recommended that when people sleepwalk, you don't wake them up. You don't want to wake them up because they're not dreaming. Their mind is completely at rest. So it can be very confusing for them. Why am I out here in the kitchen? And, most people, they'll just return to their beds, lay down. They'll never have any recollection of it. Of course, if they're going to injure themselves or walk outside, you would want to stop that. All right, so Azarinsky is the person who identified these brainwave patterns, the beta waves during REM sleep. All right, so, I should say REM sleep lasts about 30 minutes. So that's where we get the 90-minute sleep cycles, and then the process starts all over again. Okay, so in the beginning of the night, we tend to spend more time in stage 4. So that's that restorative sleep and the growth hormone being released. We spend more time in REM towards morning. So if you sleep really long, when you wake up, you're more likely to wake up in a dream. If you think about your dream right away and write it down, chances are then you'll continue to remember it. If you go do something else, you don't think about your dreams, when you get up, they're going to be gone. So that's why a lot of people don't think they dream. All right, so sleep requirements vary among individuals. Of course, young infants spend like 20 hours a day sleeping, and young children, it continues to decrease as we get older. We often think that older people just sit around and sleep all the time. They might nap more, but at night we don't sleep as much. And the theory behind this is that during REM sleep, we consolidate things that we've learned throughout the day into our memory centers. Well, you're not learning that much when you get older. Think of a young child. Think of all the new experiences that they're going to have, things they've never came across in their entire life, all the new things that they're going to hear and see and taste and touch and smell. They have so many sensations that they're experiencing at a young age. So they need that REM sleep so that they consolidate all of those new experiences into their memory centers. All right, so why do we sleep? We know it's important. We spend a third of our lives sleeping. Ultimately, if we didn't sleep, we would die. So a few purposes. One, it restores your body tissues. It's our recharge in the middle of the night to feel better the next day. We don't feel very good when we're deprived of sleep. Again, consolidates memories. It processes things that we've learned throughout the day. It stores names and facts and things that we've encountered. And the growth hormone is released when we sleep, and also your lymphocytes. Your lymphocytes help you fight off any bacteria, any viruses, any pathogens or carcinogens, I can't speak, that you may come across. It helps protect you. It's like your white blood cells that fight off those things for us. Now, they're only released during sleep. So if you're not getting enough sleep, it can cause your immune system to be suppressed. So here are a few effects of sleep deprivation. This poor lady looks pretty tired. I think I've felt that way before. All right, so obviously you're going to feel fatigue. It's going to impair your concentration. Neural impulses are slowed when we're not getting enough sleep. So we can't think as fast. So we feel sluggish, mentally sluggish. We're not as alert. We have poor memory because there's things that we've learned and encountered throughout the day were not put into our memory center. And it can impede our growth because the growth hormone isn't released. If we don't get enough sleep, like I said, the lymphocytes are not released, and that can suppress our immune system. And then we're more vulnerable to get sick. It can lead to weight gain. When you go without food, you're depriving yourself of energy. And what do you do to get energy? If you're not getting sleep, you eat. And most of us will eat foods like that are high in carbs that provide that instant energy, and they're not good for us. So that can lead to weight gain. Also wrinkles. When you're not getting enough sleep, your skin can dry out and you're not getting that elasticity that keeps us from getting wrinkles. More vulnerable to accidents. When you're not getting enough sleep, your neural impulses are slowed. It's almost like being under the influence of alcohol or another depressant. So accidents can increase if you're not getting enough sleep. And that's why truckers have these laws where they can only drive X amount of hours throughout the day because you're at a great risk for accidents if you are deprived of sleep. All right, a few sleep disorders that we looked at. Insomnia is a very common disorder. It affects roughly 20% of the population at some point in their life. Normally, insomnia where you can't fall asleep, or you go to sleep and then you wake up and you can't get back to sleep. Normally, it's due to something happening in your life. So you have racing thoughts, you have all these things going on. You just can't put your mind to rest. So sleep experts recommend that you put a notepad beside your bed and maybe write things down that you're thinking about. And that way it's there and you can revisit it in the morning. But usually insomnia will fade after those stressful events that are happening in your life go away. Some people suffer from chronic insomnia their whole life, but most of the time it's due to some life event. Okay. Narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is an uncontrollable sleep attack. It affects about 1% to 2% of the population. So someone with narcolepsy, they immediately fall asleep. That's the sleep attack. Just they're standing there, they're alert, and bam, they're out. Normally we feel sleepy when we start to feel sleepy when we're drifting off, and then we go through all the stages before we get to REM. They're immediately out and they go immediately into REM, and they have these very vivid and bizarre dreams that and they just like collapse, and their muscles just completely relax. It's called cataplexy, and it's without warning. So at one time, people with narcolepsy, they really couldn't drive because you didn't know when you were going to fall asleep or have a job that had to deal with anything that was dangerous. But there's a lot of medication available now that treat people with narcolepsy with success, and people can return to a normal life. All right, so sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is common as you get older. The risk factors are actually age and obesity. The older you are and the heavier you are, the more at risk you are for sleep apnea. So what's happening here with sleep apnea, the muscles in the throat are relaxing and kind of collapsing and cutting off the airway. So people will momentarily stop breathing. And if you're watching them, it seems like forever, but as the muscles collapse, an impulse goes to the brain saying, wake up, you're not breathing. And the person like gasps and snorts. They don't really completely wake up. But this process continues all night. And most people, the big sign of sleep apnea is snoring really loud, where everybody in the house can hear it. But it's easily treated with a mask to pump in oxygen. The CPAP mask, it keeps the airway open. Night terrors. Night terrors are more common among children and most common among boys. Some adults do suffer night terrors, but they normally fade. So what's happening with the night terror, this is in stage 4, again, when your mind is completely at rest. So a person will usually have this look of terror on their face. Their eyes are open. Sometimes they scream and scream very loud. But if you just let them do it, they'll just lay back down and go back to sleep. Most people with sleep apnea, night terrors, they have no idea that they even had it because their mind's completely at rest. They're not dreaming. They're not in that stage 5. They're not alert. So they'll just lay back down and have no recollection of it. I mean, if you wake a child up during this and you tell them they're screaming, it might be kind of frightening for them. So, but they usually fade as children get older. All right, next thing we're going to look at are dreams. So I put the definition of dreams, sequence of images, emotions, and thoughts passing through your mind as you're sleeping. And Freud was the first to really focus on dreams, and he came up with the 2 parts of a dream. So first of all, the manifest content. So according to Freud, this is what you remember. So if you have a dream that you're falling, and you remember you had a dream that you're falling, that's the manifest content. But Freud believed that most of our dreams had a psychological purpose. And in his book that he wrote, which we'll talk about in a moment, The Interpretation of Dreams, which was written in the early 1900s, he points out many different dream themes and gives his take on what the psychological purpose is. So for falling, that would be the latent content or the underlying meaning or psychological meaning would be that you're feeling that your life is out of control. So that's why you're dreaming that you're falling. Another example would be if you have a dream that you're having a baby or somebody's having a baby, that could indicate psychologically or the latent content that you're beginning something new in your life. All right, so we looked at dream theories, and there are 3 of them. The first theory is a psychological theory by Sigmund Freud. So Freud believed, again, that we dream and daydream for psychological reasons. And he called his theory the wish fulfillment theory, which he talks about, stating that a lot of dreams that we have are inappropriate or unacceptable. So to Freud, we dream about these urges or inappropriate desires that we have, and that kind of releases those urges from our mind and our body, and then we won't act upon them. So in other words, it causes us to act appropriate. We're not acting out on those inappropriate desires that we all have. We just dream about them, and then we're able to go about our business. So that's Freud's theory. 2 physical or biological theories. First of all, information processing. So according to this theory, and I mentioned this before, we dream during that stage 5 REM sleep to process things that we've learned throughout the day. And we sort and store them into our memory centers. And we know that when we're not getting enough sleep, we're forgetful. And people who are alcoholics or use sleeping pills, any type of depressants, that decreases REM sleep. And they tend to be more forgetful. We tend to have more, well, students have more REM sleep or dream sleep during times of learning. So in the school year, you spend more time in REM than you do during the summer months when you're not learning. And we know younger children, the younger you are, the more time you spend in REM. So that makes sense for this theory. Right, but that doesn't explain bizarre dreams. So that for that, we look at activation synthesis theory. Now, when you're alert, like right now, you're seeing things, you're hearing things, you're experiencing all types of sensation, and they go to your brain interprets them. That's what we do on a regular basis. At night, all of those sensations are cut off. You're not seeing things, you're not hearing things, etc. So what's happening is the pons, okay, the pons are really active and sending impulses to your brain, but these impulses are just random. And then your brain tries to make sense of them. So it pieces these random impulses together in a story, and that's your dream. So that's why a lot of dreams that we have are just very bizarre, because these are just random impulses, and your cerebral cortex is trying to make sense of them. All right, so that finishes off sleep and dreams. So next thing I want to do is look at psychoactive drugs. This is pretty brief. All right, so psychoactive drugs, any chemical substance that can alter your mood or perception. Now, we have 3 categories that we'll look at, but all of them either increase or decrease some neurotransmitter in the body. They're either an agonist through using an agonist drug or antagonist drug that we looked at in neuroscience. All 3 categories depend on your mood prior to using. So if you're angry, it'll intensify your anger. If you're happy, it'll make you happier. All right, so first of all, let me decrease that. The first category would be depressants. Depressants depress all of your body, everything physiological going on inside of the body. It decreases your heart rate, it decreases your breathing. It also reduces the neural activity, it decreases the neural activity. So neural activity is slowed. That's why you can't think very fast, you can't react very fast if you are using any type of depressant. Alcohol is the first depressant that we looked at. So it's a decrease in motor skills, judgment, you lose your balance. So that's why you should never drink and drive. And it also increases aggressiveness. And people tend to be more risk-taking when they're using alcohol. It also reduces inhibitions. So people are more likely to spill the beans, things secrets that they know, they're more likely because they're just so in such a relaxed state. GABA is the neurotransmitter that's increased when we're drinking alcohol. GABA will be released. Barbiturates, sleeping pills fall under the same categories. Alcohol, just a little bit more concentrated. Opiates, your very strong depressants, which are your narcotics, your pain medicine, morphine and heroin being the most highly concentrated, which release endorphins into the body and alleviate pain and anxiety. Again, highly addictive. We talked about this before. When you are using pain medication over time, an opiate, heroin, your body stops producing endorphins. So if you stop using the opiate or narcotic or the pain pill that you're using, you feel miserable because those endorphins just help us on a daily basis with little aches and pains that we're completely unaware of until we don't have them. So it's hard to kick that addiction once people start using. All right, so the second category will be stimulants. I don't know why this is off the board, but it's the opposite. It speeds everything up. It gives you high energy. Whereas depressants, they increase your appetite. They make you sleepy. They're slowing everything down. Here you have lots of energy. Everything's speeding up. Your neural impulses are increased, but your appetite is decreased. So caffeine, nicotine would be mild stimulants. A lot of diet pills are caffeine pills because this caffeine, the stimulants, even coffee, will decrease your appetite but speed everything else up. We looked at methamphetamines, again, highly addictive. I don't know why this is all messed up here. But the methamphetamines even destroy your memory center, the hippocampus in the brain. It starts to deteriorate and become less active. It's increasing dopamine and serotonin in the body. It dries out the skin and causes sores that will not heal. It dries out the salivary glands. So then your saliva can't clean off your teeth. So people have rotten teeth. They call it meth mouth. Methamphetamines just completely age you. Your body loses that elasticity. People using methamphetamines like 10 years, even more older than they actually are. Cocaine being a very strong stimulant causes that euphoria, that increase in energy, that rush. You want to always associate euphoria with that increasing epinephrine, which gives you energy, that dopamine and serotonin in the body. All right, the third category was hallucinogens, psychedelic drugs, which cause you to have hallucinations. You're going to experience some sensation without any sensory input. LSD is a very strong hallucinogen. Causes really bizarre hallucinations, which can cause a panic feeling. So you often see people using LSD or acid, like looking around. They'll have bizarre hallucinations, like their teddy bear might be talking to them, or the walls appear to be breathing. It's very frightening. LSD can lie in the spine, and it can resurface, and people can have flashbacks weeks later. Even after using acid or LSD, they can start tripping again weeks later without even using it. Marijuana is also a milder hallucinogen. So you need to associate it's the hemp plant. THC is the active ingredient in marijuana. And if you use a lot of marijuana at one time, it can cause mild hallucinations. It stays in your body for over a month. It can be traced. It's legal in many states now for medicinal purposes, as well as some states for recreational use. But with marijuana, the senses are very much enhanced. Everything takes on more meaning. People can become more creative. Now the tree in the front yard is the most beautiful tree you've ever seen in your life. So. All right, so the last thing we looked at with this section was withdrawal and tolerance. So withdrawal, anytime you stop using a substance, if you still experience negative effects, that's withdrawal. And they can be psychological, like you can feel irritable and nervous, or they can also cause you to physically be sick. So there's physical and psychological withdrawal. Tolerance, this simply means the more you need of a substance to get that effect, the more tolerance you build up. All right, so the last thing is hypnosis. And there's just a couple slides here. So hypnosis is an interaction between a hypnotist or a therapist and a subject. So they start going through a series of hypnotic inductions where they suggest that you're feeling sleepy and you're going to be relaxed, and they may put on music, and they try to get the person in a very, very relaxed state. And then they go through a series of suggestions on what the person should do. All right, two different theories here. The people who support hypnosis, this is referred to as a dissociation theory, that we dissociate from our conscious awareness. And this was proposed by Hilgard. So there's a divide in our consciousness. So I'll give you an example without being put under hypnosis. Let's say that you are in a basketball game and you sprain your ankle, but you continue to play. You don't feel the pain because you dissociate. You're not thinking about the pain. You're thinking about the game, and that adrenaline's going, and you keep playing. And then after, you're like, oh my goodness, this feels so bad. So you've dissociated yourself. Well, with hypnosis, according to this theory, the hypnosis will guide you to that. So they use the ice water experiment to show that, where they have someone with hypnosis, under hypnosis, somebody who's not. They place their hands in ice water, and they tell the people under hypnosis that it doesn't hurt. They feel no pain, and they're able to hold their arms into ice water for a very long time, as opposed to someone who's not under hypnosis, like, and they take it out. All right, so this skeptics, this is called the social influence or social role theory. They say that people are just acting, that people really are not under hypnosis. They're just acting out. And this was Orrin and Evans that came up with that. All right, so post-hypnotic suggestion. These are things that are supposed to be carried out after hypnosis is over. For example, smoking, biting your nails, even like migraines. Going through hypnosis, they tell you over and over again that you don't like these things, you don't want to do these things. And then after hypnosis is over, you carry them out. So it's after hypnosis, you carry out these suggestions. Post-hypnotic amnesia. This is forgetting things that occurred during hypnosis. So if the therapist says you will not, let's say they dug up something painful from your past, they'll say, okay, you will not remember this after hypnosis is over. So hypnosis is pretty controversial. Some psychologists believe, yes, it can happen. And then you have your skeptics that say, no, it doesn't. People are just acting out. But we do know that some people are more open to hypnosis, more prone to the effects of hypnosis because they believe in it. They're basically more susceptible. People who are fantasize more and more open obviously tend to be more open to hypnosis. So. All right, so I recommend now that you guys go and try and answer some of the practice questions in the review book, the AP review book that I gave you. I'll be hanging out for a while. If you have any questions over the next 30 minutes, please get back to me, or you can ask me in class tomorrow. And I hope you have a good night, and I will see you guys tomorrow.